Reverend Katie O'Dunn, known to my students as Chaplain K, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Academy Chaplain at Woodward Academy, as well as the Pauline and R.L. Brand Jr. Chair of Religious Studies. At Woodward, I get to offer pastoral care to all of our students from pre-K to 12th grade of many different beautiful religious traditions. I also get to do the same with our amazing faculty and staff. I have the pleasure of teaching comparative religions to about 160 12th graders every year as we learn about all of the beautiful faith traditions. And then I also have the pleasure of running our interfaith initiatives from pre-K to 12th grade. Because of that, I am very excited to be a friend of Interfaith Community Initiatives, as this incredible group has helped to plan many of our immersion trips with our upper school students over the last few years, as we have really immersed ourselves into various faith spaces and sacred spaces throughout Atlanta. And for that, we are very grateful. So I want to go ahead and dive into talking about everything that we are carrying and everything that people are feeling right now. And I want to start just by acknowledging that for you, for me, for our interfaith community, and for our world, the last few months have been some of the most challenging that we have faced. Working remotely, personal and family struggles while social distancing, health challenges, and life events altered by the pandemic, financial strain, and simply missing the comfort and routine of human interaction. I also acknowledge that this year has carried with it violence, injustice, and racism, along with the fear that so many people of color are experiencing. Fear that I know I cannot even begin to understand because of my own white privilege. I know that I do not have all the answers or all of the right words, either here or with my students. But I do recognize that I've been born into a broken system, which has granted me unearned benefits and protections throughout my life. A broken system in which George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery were not granted those same privileges. And while I, along with many white allies, are working to listen, grow, and advocate, I deeply apologize for any role I have played in injustice and stand with you through all of the changes that need to occur so desperately on personal, institutional, and systemic levels as we seek to affirm that Black lives matter. So, of course, there has been a lot of grief in the midst of this time. In the midst of COVID and in the midst of social distancing. My students know that I do not like the term physical distancing. We should not be physical distancing. It's really just social distancing. But also just through all that is going on in the world, all that is coming to light for so many, for many in actually my school community for the first time, realizing the hatred and bigotry in our world that so many have dealt with for so long. But there are many who are starting to grapple with this for the first time, and this is really challenging. So there are many who are experiencing loss, deep loss and deep grief for a number of reasons. And I know that I'm here today to talk to you about light and hope, and I promise that's coming, but I think this is important to address first. So there are many who are experiencing grief due to a loss of time together. Grief for my students due to a loss of school time and a learning experience. For some of them, loss of commencement, loss of prom. And for others, there are loss of weddings, loss of births in hospitals. There are those experiencing divorces while social distancing without the comfort of community. And this is all real grief. And then, of course, there is grief due to the loss of life. Loss of life due to systemic racism, police brutality, and injustice, and loss of life to illness in families in the midst of social distancing where everyone can't come together and support as they typically would. And there's also been life due to battles with mental illness when individuals are separated from their typical support networks. This is a really tough time, and this is more than anyone should have to carry. And I just want to acknowledge that if you are struggling, that is okay, that this is a tough time. So this is a lot. It's more than my students or those of any age should have to cope with. But while I do not have all the words, while I don't have all the wisdom, one thing I do have is hope. And that hope is not something that just comes within me, but from my faith. My faith as a Christian minister, ordained in the UCC, my faith as an interfaith chaplain, but also the beautiful faiths of my Jewish, Muslim, Christian, Hindu, Buddhist, Sikh, and Jain students. When someone in my school community experiences a loss or a struggle, I often talk about how God has not caused, instigated, or created the brokenness that we are experiencing. It's not a punishment or a test, but rather God is filled with compassion for our human struggles emerging from our free will. And rather than creating the brokenness, God offers us opportunities to create beauty out of brokenness. God offers opportunity to create beauty out of brokenness in our lives, in our communities, and in our world. And through the unique gifts given by God, molded with us out of clay and breathed into our nostrils, God offers us the unique gift and ability to create beauty out of brokenness. So we're each created with different, beautiful, amazing skills, just like our unique and beautiful faith, the different unique and beautiful ways that we connect with God. God has created some of us to be creative, curious, inquisitive, imaginative, charismatic, adventurous, patient, organized, perceptive, persuasive, resourceful, and many other things. We are all different. But when we work together, we have that unique ability to create beauty, even in the most challenging times. And that is a gift that is given to us by God. And it's really where I've seen hope in light of everything going on in our world right now. So in the midst of social distancing, in the midst of really challenging conversations, there are a lot of spaces that I've been inspired by community. So in the midst of social distancing, I've seen connections forming outside of normal circles. For instance, at Woodward, I have had the chance to facilitate coffee with colleagues and see colleagues from across campus that have never interacted come together and become community, become friends. And I've seen this outside of my Woodward community as well, where individuals are making connections. I have a friend who is planning to fly across the country because of someone they met virtually who has a similar interest to them in the midst of social distancing. I'm seeing students appreciating relationships over technology. Many of my students are saying that when we return to school, they are not going to be staring at their phones or their computers, but want to connect with those next to them because it's humanity that really matters. There have been many people who have taken opportunities to call family and loved ones for the first time, or have taken opportunities for prayer in new, unique, and beautiful ways to connect with God. There are individuals who are having Zoom family dinners with people that they might not have connected with before. There are students that I've been receiving thank you emails from that I never really thought that those would come. And I'm sure some of you are hearing from those in your lives that might be new to you. And again, in our Woodward community, I've seen student transport deliveries with our bus drivers to houses of current students and new students with care packages. Our dining services has been packing meals for those who are experiencing food insecurity. There are so many amazing things that are happening. There are ways that people are creating community and really ditching the idea of physical distancing and really living into the idea, or ditching the idea of social distancing and living into the idea of it just being physical distancing, that we are still a community, we can still come together. There are also spaces that I've seen us using our unique and beautiful gifts to fight racism, to be anti-racist, and to be a part of social justice movements. I've seen these incredible student responses virtually and in person. There are new diversity, equity, and inclusion meetings. Our school actually had one yesterday where we had the chance to talk about the book, So You Want to Talk About Race. And we had these incredibly powerful conversations with 70 faculty members during the summer who wanted to engage, who wanted to make a difference. There are prayer vigils that are happening virtually. There are some prayer vigils that are happening social in terms of social distancing in person. There are protests with those who have never had the opportunity maybe to participate before, who are a part of this movement. And then I also want to note, there's a really interesting space. I've been receiving phone calls, emails, and Zoom calls from individuals who want to talk about what's going on in the world, how to serve as an advocate, how to be a part of making a difference in the world, how to use their unique gifts in order to do that. And that's a really beautiful thing. Just to be clear, it's okay to grieve. It is okay to be angry. It is okay to feel guilt over systems of oppression that we might have participated in. I know that I do. And yet we can also have hope. We can have hope that through faith in God, who created our beautiful, diverse world, we have the ability to turn brokenness into beauty. We are already beginning to see glimpses of this. Again, I'm seeing that with my students. I'm seeing that in the way people are getting creative in ways to come together, in ways to advocate. And I'm particularly drawn to a recent virtual musical version of a song that many of my students participated in, which I will offer the link for after this video. But the lyrics go, "This is our world, this is our time. These are our plans, gonna let them shine. This is our place in the human race, and we won't stop dreaming. We won't stop dreaming." And that's what I encourage you to do. I encourage you to offer yourself love and compassion, to know that God is walking with you, that God is holding your hand in the midst of really difficult times. And it is okay to grieve. It is okay to struggle. But I also want you to know that there is hope, that God has created you and every single person in your midst with unique and beautiful gifts, with unique and beautiful parts of their identity that can be used to turn brokenness into beauty, to find beauty even in the midst of things that seem really, really challenging. So I'd like to close this time in prayer. I'd like to borrow this from the Episcopal Church's Book of Common Prayer. Let us pray. Hear our prayers, Holy God. Breathe your Spirit over us and all the earth, that barriers would crumble and divisions cease. Make us more fully your co-healers of the broken world. Unite us with all people in bonds of love, that the whole earth and all its peoples may be at peace.